All right, guys, it's almost an agreement time. I got Sherri Garrett with me. That's District 7 School Board, right?
That's correct.
All right, see, I'm remembering these things. There's only 500 people to keep straight. So we're going to talk about what's going on in District 7, what's going on with School Board. There's lots to do. We're going to talk about the campaigning and stuff like that. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. You can go to our website, almostinagreement.com. All the episodes are available there, as well as my election guide for 22 and my jobs description sheet that I'm still kind of working out the details on, so don't get mad at me when it's incomplete. Go to your favorite podcast provider, give us a follow or subscribe there or on YouTube so that you'll get all these episodes automatically instead of having to go search out each one individually. Outside that, I got a couple more scheduled later this week, and then we have the big show on Saturday. As always, we're going to keep working through it. We have a lot of people, and I don't know, I got ahead of the curve, I think. I'm not running out of time like I did with those city races last year. So we're almost in agreement. Outro is going to do its thing, and then we're going to do a show. I guess it's an intro, not an outro. Told you it's been a crazy day. All right, Sherri Garrett, Seat 7, School Board. Right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's Powell Hall's up northeast Knoxville.
Powell Hall's High School.
Right. All those guys. Okay, so the first time we've talked outside of a little bit of chat and tried to schedule this thing, I always like to start with the brief history review. Give me a 6.5-minute bio on where you started as a human being to where you are now, and then what got us into chasing this particular seat.
I've spent my entire life here in Knox County. Moved out in Ohio for about a year and then moved back. Couldn't stand being away from the mountains and the lovely landscape of East Tennessee. Both my parents were born and raised here. I can trace my generations back for the last at least 4 or 5 generations back in Knox County, most of them in Halls. On my dad's side in South Knoxville and my mom's side in Halls. Still have a lot of family living there. Right. Graduated South Young High School.
Okay. And so what have you been doing? I mean, have you been politically active the whole time, or what have you been doing in that gap between the 7 years since you graduated high school or so?
I like that, 7 years. You're my best friend now.
I was a server bartender for a long time. I know a couple of tricks.
I married very young and had 4 children right off the bat, 4 boys, and divorced early on too. So I was a single mom raising 4 boys. And that kind of threw me into nursing school. Went to nursing school and have been in nursing for the past 30 years.
Okay.
And met my current husband, 25 years ago, and we have a son who just turned 21 in November.
Okay.
And my 4 older boys all went to Knox County schools. My youngest was homeschooled.
All right. Cool. All right. So, what now? Why are we running for this seat this time around? Has there been a history of involvement in the school board with you, or is this the first chase to it?
This is the past couple of years with obviously with COVID hit. There was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of overreach, a lot of mandates. So I got involved with the Board of Health fight. Mm-hmm. And got involved in that, and 7 months going to the county commission, and then once that board was made advisory, started with the school board, trying to get the masks off our children, making it optional, giving parents the choice. Parents need to have the choice on how they treat their children, with health care.
Right.
And that's been going on for the past year.
So that's the catalyst. That's now's my time. This is the situation that has made me go from an active bystander to I want to be part of this game.
That's exactly right.
Okay. I guess, again, it's always interesting. Everybody's got different origin stories, for lack of a better word. We've all been through our Marvel universes, so it's all origin stories. Because there's lots of, there's people that I've talked to that have been at some level, whether it's been like with one of the parties, they've been doing stuff behind the scenes for candidates or whatever for years. There's always, it's always neat to watch different ways, and especially with the school board, especially now with the way things are going currently in school board and all the activity that's going on around it, and this new partisanship thing that's going on in school board now as well. So far, I think the most diverse set of origin stories have been come per school board. So we're getting more people that are outside of the traditional school board members that are running. I think you'd probably fall into the more traditional origin story as far as, you know, a Knox County parent and was involved as a parent in the schools and transitioned over. But, you know, we're starting to look at some people that are outside of the schools coming into the schools. Anyway, long rant for nothing necessarily important. Okay, so I mean, we already hit on it, so let's just go ahead and go. It's obvious by your statement that the masking situation is something you're specifically not happy about, and that's something that you want to get in school board and change. That is one of many things that have been on my list of things I'm trying to figure out. And the mechanics here is what I'm confused on. Like, I watched a little bit of the meeting last night. I've read a bunch of the stories on where a couple of the school board members went to the commission meeting.
I was there.
Seeking funding for bringing in an outside attorney. Because this is one of the things that, like, when we first started doing the show was when that ballot initiative that Jacobs kind of pushed to get the law director unelected into an appointment. And this is this situation right here is one of those where it kind of starts making sense to me. It's like we have I'm not exactly sure how this is supposed to work, I suppose, and then how it is. Because, you know, like, we elected Buck to be the law director. It's an elected position. But my understanding of it is he is elected to do a job. That job is to serve the commission, the school board, the mayor's office, Knox County at large. He's supposed to do the sheriff's office too, which he's not only doing like half of their stuff, but that's a whole separate subcontext of conversation. And so this is a weird ism. It's like how, like, you know, I've heard some of the different, like, how to get around and how to kind of force the issue on the mask mandate thing as far as, you know, intentional noncompliance and stuff like that. But trying to follow the legalese of this, how do we go about getting the masks off our kids if we're going to do it the legal route?
Well, I'm in full support of the school board asking for outside counsel. I think that there is some conflict of interest, considering that the law director's office not only represents the school board, the mayor, the county commission, and the sheriff's department, but also the health department,
right? Which
has always been in favor of masking children,
right?
But I mean, when you look out in the community, and as I was driving down here and seeing the kids, you know, coming out of school, and a majority of them had taken their masks off literally as soon as they walked out the door.
Oh yeah, all of them do.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw one child that still had theirs on.
Yeah, and like we have a couple of extracurriculars that my kids do, and depending on the circumstances on whether they're wearing masks at those, they're not Knox County school related, so it's not like under mandate kind of stuff. But it's like, well, you know, we have, I don't know for this. Yeah, fine, I'll say it. We're in Scouts. We do Scouts. We're a Scout family. We've been in Scouts for years. And, you know, depending on, I mean, when we've done stuff indoors because of our charter organization and their request, we do wear masks because it's their building that they're letting us use. And so we follow the rules that they put forth to us. But everything else, for outside or for anything else, we never have masks on. And I don't know if anybody's ever met a fourth grader, but 6 feet is this far away for those listening. That's about 3 inches in reality is exactly. Their understanding of what 6 feet is, even if it's inside or outside or whatever. And so, like, I get it as a parent. I don't know that I'm as passionate one way or the other about the masking topic. I think it's not as big of an issue to me because of where my kids are in school. As far as my kids don't seem to have any particular issues with it. But at the same time, I don't like the idea of a federal judge being the one that gets to choose what my kids do in school.
I don't either, especially one that's not even located in the area.
Right.
He's in two counties away.
Right, and it's like, well, what's the point of having the school board? Why are we electing you for this position if you can make a decision that you're elected to make, and some federal judge gets to come around and say, no, you can't make that decision? Now, I understand there are some things that are definitely on a list of things that a school board could potentially do that I like the idea of some oversight on. But it doesn't make sense to have. Why do we have local units if they don't have the power to do what they're tasked to do by the citizens that they work for?
Exactly.
That's where I get that's where I get on board with the argument that we're sitting through with this mask thing right now. It's not so much about the mask specifically. It's what's the point of having local coverage if we don't get to use it?
The whole argument in this lawsuit is over the ADA. And the ADA was created to prevent physical barriers from, you know, wheelchair ramps, braille on elevator, you know, buttons and that kind of thing. But it was never meant to use invisible barriers and to use people as accommodations.
Right.
Because basically what's happening is that people... we're being the accommodations, our children, our grandchildren.
Right.
So I have 10 grandchildren, 5 of them in Knox County schools right now.
Yeah, because again, that's what I don't know that it's been and this is one of my problems, and I guess why we exist to show, like, I don't know that I've gotten a good explanation of what's actually going on, like of what the real brass tacks, origin story of this, which is the origin story, so I guess pretty obvious, but how the mechanics of this thing are working. Because, again, I think one of the issues when you have parents that are coming to school board meetings going crazy and getting upset because they don't want their kids in masks and yelling at school board members about it, when at this point it's out of the school board's hands.
Their hands are completely tied.
They can do some stuff, like try to get outside counsel and try to get the legal department to step up and fight the fight, for lack of a better word. But, at this point you're yelling at a wall because the school board, it's out of the school board's hands. And so that's one of the things, to me, in the grand scheme of things, it's the most frustrating thing about trying to watch politics, especially local politics. Because I think 9 out of 10 people don't know who the right person to yell at is. Sometimes it's appropriate to yell at some people. That's why we elected them. We elected them to do things. And sometimes when they don't do the things that we elected them to do, they should be yelled at. But when we had a commission and the health department and all that kind of thing, I don't know that technically legally lined up correctly, that the commission had the real authority to do some of what they did, which is still confusing to me on that part. But then we shifted over to the current one. And who do you go at? Like, who do you go try to talk to when it's a federal judge that's not even local?
Honestly, I'm as baffled about that as you are. And I honestly don't think, from the last night's meeting and from the school board meeting last week, I don't think even the school board has completely been updated on everything that's being done. Director Book said last night that he has 8 out of the 10 attorneys working on it every day. I did not get that impression from the school board meetings that Mr. Dupler has spoken at about the mandate, about the lawsuit.
Right. And again, I don't know. All right, so let's go off masks. Okay. So, I mean, there's more to schools going on right now than masks. So we could stay on this for like 5 weeks, and it would be. And the sad part is nothing changes, and that's the scary part. Okay, so there's. I think one of the active conversations that I see around as I'm talking to different people and stuff like that is total budget, school pay, teacher pay, stuff like that. How do we stay a competitive school district with the limited budget that we kind of sort of function at?
We have to look at the budget in its entirety and see where there's possible waste going on. For example, why does the Knox County Schools need a PR department?
Because we have a mask problem? I mean,
apparently.
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what the PR department technically does.
Honestly, a PR department in any other organization is usually there to promote that organization and make them look good. That's my opinion of it. But
I mean, I would assume that whoever, like technically speaking, whoever runs the Knox County Schools Facebook page is a PR person by definition.
Yeah. I
don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I'm certainly would love to explore that with you, because that is one. I mean, it's. I don't know. Maybe I guess this is a better topic to talk about at the kind of in the same time, is because Knox County Schools might need a PR department if stuff at the state level continues on the path it's going.
No, that is true.
They're going to need some way to say, hey, you need to send your kids here so we can get your voucher money. And so, with some of the stuff that's been recently happening in current school board, I think this is the first time in 20 years that anti-voucher has not been top of the school board's agenda.
Yeah, that was
for
removed.
State level. This is the first time it's been not high on that list. I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's something? Do you think this conversation at the state level and how it's going to impact our schools here is a net positive for the student?
For the student, absolutely.
Okay.
I think that parents should be able to have the choice on where they send their kids to school instead of being locked into a school that could be failing. I mean, right now, if you look at the report card on the website right now, our I got my numbers here. Knox County overall and have mastered in 2019. 10.5% have actually mastered. It's worse this year. It's 4.5%.
Mastered the stuff they're supposed to know at the grade level they're at. Everything
from English language to math to science.
Because like for me, like my eldest that you just kind of half met as we ran through the door, he was really struggling. Especially, I don't know if I won't say it's pandemic related or not, but we got him a tutor at the beginning of this school year, and like a couple weeks in, I get a text from the tutor, and she's like, "So just so you know, when we did our little session today, I gave him the 3rd grade standard test. He's a 5th grader." Mm-hmm. And he's like, "He did okay." I was like, "You mean he did okay?" He's like, "I think he technically would have passed it, but not by much." And it's like, so my 5th grader can barely pass a 3rd grade evaluation. What's going on here? And so they've been working really hard, and at least for him, his grades in school kind of reflected that he was behind. I've heard stories from other parents that I've talked to where they have AB kids and have had a similar situation where they're talking about their kids a year and a half behind standard, which that's a whole other separate argument in and of itself. But their kids are behind standard, but they're AB students. And so how's that? How do these things match up, and how do we move forward from there? So okay, anyway, vouchers are cool with you. That's fine. Yep. I'm what's the word I'm thinking of? I'm open to the conversation. I want to understand how vouchers work, and more importantly to me, I want to understand how state accreditation works for a school, because I'm cool with vouchers if it's easier to create a school. Because right now, as I'm watching some of the different stuff going on, they're talking about they're going to start. The state's going to allow some charter schools to come in without local jurisdiction. And I don't know if I'm okay with that one.
I'm not sure I'm okay with that one either.
Because essentially what it's supposed to be is that the state board can approve a school. If some charter private school wants to come into Knox County, the state board can approve it without Knox County schools having any say in it. And I don't know how I feel about that, because part of it's like, obviously Knox County schools will be like, no, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
For the competitive part of the conversation.
I need a lot more information before I can make a decision on.
I'm very interested in following these different stories as they go, because again, if the point is production out of the kids, I mean, that's the idea. We're building adults to go out and continue in our communities. That's the metric we're going on. And if that metric's falling short, I'm open to any ideas on how to change that to get that base level up for those kids. Now, that doesn't mean I'm for or against. I want to hear it. I want to understand it better. And that's part of the problem I'm having with vouchers currently, is I haven't really heard a full picture of what this actually means.
That's true. I don't think anybody's heard a full picture.
And I don't know who to ask.
And generally, would support vouchers, but there's a lot of things that have to come into play in order to make it work. And we've never gotten a full explanation on any of that.
All right. So that's vouchers. That's masks. That's teacher salaries that we're starting to talk about, and then got kind of sidetracked with that. Because again, I think there's... I am a cheap person in general. I don't want more taxes taken out of my wallet than I don't have to. But at the same time, I mean, some of the numbers are pretty bad. I mean, we've got, 45K as a starting teacher in Knox County. That's like 10 or 15 grand under the state average, if I remember hearing correctly.
That is correct.
And so why would I teach in Knox County if I'm a good teacher?
I think that's where we're losing. Big time. We need to absolutely look at like I said, that entire budget and find out where things can be reallocated and given to the teachers, because the money should be where the students are. Why are we spending so much money at administration when the teachers are the ones directly involved with the students? They're the ones that are teaching the students. They're the ones with them day in and day out.
See, I have to push back a little bit on that one, because I had Ron in here a couple months ago because we were talking budgets, because that's all I want to understand. That's top of my list of things to understand. And I mean, I know they're huge numbers because it's $600 million budget or whatever, but I want to say it's like 90% was payroll.
Payroll where?
I mean, I'd have to find it again. But I mean, it's. I'm assuming it was total payroll, but I mean, my recollection of it was that, or maybe that's what it was. 90% of payroll is teachers, or something like that. It was a huge percentage of that budget. He's accommodating to payroll and teachers specifically. I mean, it's public. We could find it if we want to dig through it, but. So again, I'm not saying you're not accurate on it, and there isn't waste that could be found, but I don't know how much, and how much that's going to make a real difference when it gets down to a $10,000 or $15,000 difference in salaries for teachers.
If I remember correctly, in this year's budget, they were looking at a 1.4% increase in teacher salaries. I could be wrong on that.
It was like Lee put out the 3%, which the state paid like 1.5%. We paid the other 1.5%.
Okay, that's probably where they came from.
Yeah,
because that came from us, and then the other is still
right. Because that's another one. Because that's another one to me. This BEP formula, the budget itself is one thing, and then how the budget exists is the other. Nobody understands. I think I would say that I'm probably top 10 people in Knox County that understands how the BEP formula works. That's not a good thing. I promise. I'm not. I shouldn't be a top list of anything in understanding things, because it's the most insane thing ever on how we get funded. And then we have to turn around and share that the way we share it. So I don't know why I went into there. Anyway, budgets. But I think budget's the number one thing, especially if vouchers are on the table. How do we make these budgets functional to make what will essentially be the Knox County public school system competitive against private schools as they come in? I mean, because the fear to me as a parent is, okay, I have a choice. but my voucher will cover my kids at Rocky Hill, but then I'm, double out of pocket to get him into a school that I think is actually worth having him in. How do I get my kids the actual education they need without paying significantly more out of pocket? Because that's my assumption. That's my fear in what a voucher system is going to end up doing. Yeah, I can send them to Rocky Hill, which is now going to be significantly less funded than it currently is. Mm-hmm. Or I can send them to this private school, but I got to pay $10,000 a year on top of the 7 or 8 that I get from the state in vouchers. So regardless of whether vouchers come in or not, how do we make our schools better with the money we have? I think that's the number one issue to me, because I don't think vouchers matter in that conversation. I really think it's about how do we get these schools to perform to where anybody ever wants to have their kids in there.
That's a really good question.
But I mean,
it's a valid question too. I mean, it's hard when you don't have all the breakdowns of the budget. I mean, I have an overall budget. I've seen the overall budget. I've not dug through every little thing, but in most budgets, even in household budgets, I mean, there's always some kind of waste.
But I as much as I'm sure I 100% agree that there's some amount of waste, I can't imagine it's enough to make a difference.
That's
a real difference at the end of the day. I think, sure, yeah, we could trim out. I mean, again, like, what's the governor said he's going to put $2 billion into state schools, public schools. Enough. And so, yeah, $2 billion in the state of Tennessee. It's like, I think Knox County's getting $125 million or something like that. It's nothing.
It's a drop in the bucket,
right? And so, if we can find $100 million in waste, that'd be crazy. No, if we can find $10 million, or let's say 6, that's 1%. If we can find $6 million in waste in this school budget, it's 1%. It's not going to make a huge change on the other side. So how do we do it? Like, this is the job that I think I'm asking a school board member for when I vote for them. How do we make our schools better? Because I don't know how much the budgets are going to change. I mean, realistically, that's my concern.
They're probably not going to change a whole lot.
Right.
It's the hardest part is trying to figure out how it needs to change. I believe we need to get back to basics.
Okay.
We need to get back to basics in education to give the kids the foundation that they need. It's like biblically, you talk about building your house on a rock versus building your house on sand.
Right.
You're giving that rocky foundation to where they could succeed in life as adults. You give them that foundation when they're young, and they'll have that built on a rock.
Right.
And that will give them the foundation to get through middle school, through high school, through college. They should be ready for college as soon as they graduate high school. And getting that back to education, back to basics in education, reading, writing, math, civics, science. That basic education is where I think we can make change in how our kids are learning.
Right. But I mean, where the art's in that, because I'm a big arts dork. I love the arts.
I think arts are important.
But how do we put focus back on the basics with an arts department that already is super under budget? Like, I mean, I know we're talking budgets and all we're doing is talking about money that neither of us have the full breakdown of. Right. But I just feel like this is the quandary of the game that we're playing right now, that we're trying to figure out how to do better with. And it almost feels to me, and this isn't you exclusively, I think this is the current school board, if nothing else. It almost feels to me that it's just the acceptance of this is the best we can do with what we have.
I think we can always do better.
I agree with that.
Always. There's a way to do better. You just have to find it.
Okay. Well, give me some. That's what I want to hear from you. That's what makes me want to vote for you, even though I can't because you're on the other side of town. But yeah. That's to me is like, how are you going to change that? Like, how are you going to bring that new thing to the table that we can see some positive gains in the schools for?
I think, one thing we can do is we can get parents back in schools.
Yeah.
We can, I remember back in the day, we had room mothers.
It's only her back in the day is only 5 years ago. She's not that old.
Exactly. Only 5 years ago. We had room mothers that would come in and volunteer in the classroom. Just recently, before COVID, we had my church group, home group, would go and volunteer at one of the elementary schools and work with tutoring kids in the reading.
Right.
And parents can be hugely involved in schools in helping their kids learn and read. And I know there's a lot of single parents who don't have the time to volunteer during school, but there's always a way, even if it means turning the TV off for a while, turning off the video games, and spending time with your kid. And
I think regardless of the budgetary bonus that having room volunteers is, I think there's studies out there that show that the amount of parent involvement is more important than the amount of money the school has.
Yeah.
there's just in the state of Tennessee, there's been a couple of studies on that specific thing. The schools that have the most involved parents have the best outcomes with the least amount of money spent on those schools, whether it's direct money or indirect money through a PTO or something like that. And that's, but that's an overall cultural issue that we're having. And I don't know that's a whole nother animal of government that we got to figure out how to get that part involved. But I agree. I think I still get funny looks as the dad that goes and picks up. Which, that's an old cultural issue, that the dad's the one that's there for pickup and stuff. And it's like, well, it's just, that's how my schedule and my wife's schedule work. So
I don't know.
Whatever.
I've seen a lot of dads picking up the kids.
But I've done a bunch of different stuff over the years where I'm the only dude in the room. And
I think dads are a lot more involved nowadays than they used to be.
Maybe at other schools, but apparently not as much at mine, because I could be, I don't know, be 15 moms and me. And I'm like, okay. And they're all chatting and they talk every day because they hang out all the time. But anyway, that's a personal issue. It's not important. Okay, well, I don't know. Give me more of the Sherri Garrett sales pitch. What's on your top agenda stuff that when you're out door knocking or at a club meeting or something like that? What are some of the top things that people are either asking you, or top things that you want to make sure you get out when you talk to people?
Well, obviously back to basics. I've been talking about that a lot, and school safety. I fully support the school resource officers in each and every school, and I think Mr. Triplett had mentioned once about the going to the state and asking them to pay for at least a portion of the SROs in schools, and I am in agreement that I don't know why they aren't paying for them now.
Right, there's some counties that pay for they pay for the whole thing. It's the same thing as everything else. Apparently, in Knox County, is the state pays for part of everything, but not the whole of anything.
But if we could get that, and I believe the school board is moving forward in sending that request to the state to have them pay for it. But I'm in full support of that. I think our kids need to feel safe while they're in schools too.
Right. I think that was interesting. It was now I blanked out on his name. He's running for District 1. He had been a school resource officer for a little while, so that was a very interesting conversation to have with him. Because that's stuff like, I always talk about how important it is for us as the constituent to understand what you as the elected person can do in the job title that you have. And, the school board is a fairly narrow window, as much as people like to lay everything at your feet. It's a fairly narrow window, but one of the things that's fully within the scope of the school board is how we run our security. Whether that's with the partnership with the county, with the sheriff's office and or KPD for the in-city, the schools that are in the cities and stuff like that. But that is completely within the jurisdiction of the school board, of how we do this, how many we have, how much we pay, X, Y, Z, whatever. I'm sure there's some sort of training manuals and events that are put together that the school board gets to choose whether or not these guys get to go to those or not. And I think that's an important one that I don't think a lot of people put on the school board and should. Because I think Knox County Schools a decade ago, whenever they started it, I think they did it on purpose, that they made them look like sheriffs.
I think so too. But my sons, my 4 boys, all tell me stories about how they had conversations with and had even played ball and stuff with their resource officers. Right. They built great relationships. I went to
Bearden, and we had an actual sheriff and our school resource officer, and I didn't know which one was what. So it's like, well, why is anyway that like that whole thing where it's very intentional that they're supposed to look like sheriffs, and I don't know if that's so. When I get mad as a parent, I go yell at Spangler instead of you. Yeah, I don't know if that's the point. I don't know why. I don't. Again, I don't. I mean, I'm sure there's some purpose behind it, but I think that's something that we can actually control, and I think it's important that those conversations start actually happening a little bit more in the foresight. So okay. So anyway, back to basics. Security. What's next?
CRT.
What about
critical
CRT?
Race theory. I haven't seen any indications that it's actually in Knox County schools, but I've heard stories from other counties and other states that critical race theory is prevalent in their schools. I hope it's not here.
No, this is one of those things that I get lost on.
A lot of people do, including myself.
Well, it's like I understand what critical race theory is, and I understand some of the things, because I think this is one of the misnomers that's at play. I don't think that anywhere in Knox County schools that they're actually teaching critical race theory.
There is not. I don't believe there's a critical race theory 101 class. Right,
but what the I guess to me, what's in question that could potentially be happening that I don't know of either, but I don't go to every school and find these things out, is that there are ideas and or programs or lessons that come out of CRT that are being taught in the schools. Mm-hmm. And okay, for the sake of conversation, maybe they are. How do they get in there in the first place if they are? And then what authority does the school board have to get them out?
Well, with the law that was passed last year, they have all authority to remove that from the classroom, whether it's in curriculum or whether it's actually the way it's being taught. That's one that really, honestly, it's really hard to figure out how that can work, because it has to be pretty blatant. You have to find it, and you have to show whether it's the way it's being taught or whether it's something in the curriculum that's being taught.
No, time out. Let's back up just a second. Let's. I want to, because again, like, I don't know, like, how am I going to word this? Like I said, I know what it is as a grand theory, and as like a higher level, like higher education actually has full courses on it. But I'm trying to figure out at what context it could be being taught in lower education, in middle school, high school in Knox County. Like how does, again, like I said, like I understand what the main theory is. We're not teaching the main theory in schools, but some of the ideas and stuff are coming in, or potentially coming into some of the programs that are going on in the schools. How do I identify them, I guess, as the starting point? You know, again, like it'd have to be within the parameters that already exist of how you're allowed to teach certain subjects, because that's up to the school board. But how, like, I guess that's what I'm lost on, is how is it getting in a curriculum when it's not officially there in the first place? And what is it that's getting in that is raising concern with parents?
I haven't seen any in any of the curriculum. I've got the Amplify books from the middle school, and I haven't found anything in there that's concerning, although I did think that Edgar Allan Poe is a little dark for sixth graders.
I'm trying to remember when I did that. I don't know.
I was in high school.
What was it? I'm trying to remember.
I was in high school.
I mean, we did Lord of the Flies, which is apparently like a questionable now. And
I didn't do that in high school.
We did Lord of the Flies in middle school, I think.
We did Shakespeare.
I did Hatchet. Hatchet was in 5th grade, 6th grade, maybe.
No, I didn't do that.
Gary Paulson, Hatchet.
Great
book. I loved it. But it was about the kid that fell out of it. Basically, not fell out of an airplane. His airplane crashed. The pilot dies, and he's lost in the woods. And it's like the survival story is, you know, middle school age kid. And I remember this distinctly from way back when 5th, 6th grade, whenever it was. There's a scene in it where like the plane had landed, crashed into the lake. He got out or whatever, but he was going back. He'd set camp and he was surviving for a couple of weeks, and he was getting back into the plane to try to find some of the, you know, the emergency help and stuff that's in the plane. And there's a whole section of it where he's face to face with the dead pilot under the water that's been in there for a couple of weeks, and it's pretty graphically gross. I remember that specifically, but I remember loving that book when I was a kid.
That's not what I read when I was a kid. I read a lot.
Right. I was not a big reader, so find something that maybe that's what it was, the skeletons that caught me that I wanted to stick around for. Anyway, Edgar Allan Poe is maybe a little bit young for your taste, but
it depends on the child, honestly. But
back to the original question. So we're not finding it, at least in the hard copy material. Mm-hmm. So the only way it's getting in is that if a teacher is verbally teaching it while they're talking about a subject that's inside the physical materials. Mm-hmm. So how do we get it? How do we find somebody teaching it?
That's where you've got to get parents back in the classrooms. Volunteers.
I get it. I get it and I don't. Because, again, take the CRT out of it. We'll say my lack of faith, for lack of a better word. I'm not sure that I'm going to be comfortable if a teacher starts talking about Jesus in the classroom. Because it makes sense in the concept of what they're talking about, but it's not important. It's not specifically in there. And I might push back on that if I happen to be in that classroom.
Yeah.
I guess my problem here is, I guess a better version of it is, I'm not the parent in the classroom. Mm-hmm. So now I'm not only having to trust the teacher to teach what they're supposed to teach, but the other parents that are hanging out in there to have the same standards that I do.
Well, unless you're sending your child to a Christian school, I mean, honestly...
But I guess, right. But my point in that was not that necessarily, is that a subject can come up and be brought up in discussion in the class, because little Susie might bring it up while talking about whatever, and then the teacher's response to it. But then the classroom teacher shuts it down or doesn't shut it down, and then it comes home to me, and I'm like, hey, I'm not cool with that or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I guess my problem as an outside parent, which would be perhaps not the one that's in the classroom, how do I again, like I was saying, I have to agree with the teacher's methods, and then I also have to agree with another parent that I don't know's oversight on that teacher's methods. Because I, for whatever reason, have a job or whatever, and I don't have time to be in the classroom to be the personal oversight of it. And so, again, I can understand it in some of the base arguments about the problems with CRT and stuff like that, and agree or not, it's not important. But the ideas of who we're choosing to oversight is also a problem for me too. If that's other parents, I don't necessarily trust all the other parents that I know. I know some really cool parents, and I know some really terrible parents. And I know some that are maybe not terrible parents, but just they have a set of morals and ideals that I don't agree with. And that I would have problems with that parent installing that into a classroom just because that parent has time and I don't. So, again,
I can see that point.
And so, again, I guess the whole Jesus part of it or whatever that I brought in was not to say it should or shouldn't be taught there. It's just that if that teacher or if that parent that's in the classroom has a certain set of ideals that they're trying to maybe oversee the teacher and make sure they're not breaking the bounds. Well, maybe I agree with where the teacher's going, but now this parent is outing this teacher and then we have problems and blah, blah, blah. That's my kind of fear in this breakdown as you're explaining it, I guess.
Well, I can totally see that. I mean, I understand that, but politics, religion, all that, they need to be learning the basics. They need to be taught how to read, how to write, how to do math, the science, basic civics.
Basic civics.
Basic civics, yeah.
Because you know what civics isn't? Basic. At all.
It really isn't. That's a misnomer right there.
That's what I've been learning real hard the last couple of years. But no, I mean, again,
there's nothing basic about civics.
I 100% agree. I think that I think one of the problems we have in the school system is there's too much focus on other things other than. Mm-hmm. I think we have too much focus, or at least there's too much. Because I need to print a copy of it and have it here because I reference it all the time. There's a great illustration, and it's the modern teacher or whatever, mm-hmm. and it's like the teacher, and she's got like tattoos on and stuff like that, and all the tattoos are all the jobs the teacher has, and so it's like guidance counselor, medic, and not cafeteria worker, but like just all the different things other than teaching that mm-hmm. we ask our teachers to do, and I think that is a great conversation that needs to be looked into because I think that is a problem we have. I understand the logistics mm-hmm. of, you have a kid that doesn't have a home or is not getting fed well because of whatever's going on in the home life and stuff like that, that teacher is probably one of the few contacts that kid has outside of his family. And that it's a good place to use that teacher's knowledge and stuff like that to get the help. But it shouldn't be the teacher's help. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think that's one of the problems we have where we have teachers that are having to go out and coordinate like food drop-offs and stuff for households and get kids moved here and there and everywhere and get all these other things going on other than this is what 2 + 2 equals. And this is how we figure it out. Like that's what teachers are supposed to do. We need social workers in the schools. Yeah. We need parents and outside nonprofit style organizations that can help with these kids, but it doesn't need to fall in the lap of our teachers. And I think that's one of the problems we're looking at too. Yeah.
They already have enough to do with trying to teach the kids, but when you add all that on top of it, something has to fall to the wayside, and it's lately especially, and it's not just the past couple of years, it's been going on for a long time. Right. It's been the education.
Well, I go back to I graduated in 2000. I don't think I was prepared to leave in 2000, and that's Knox County Schools. Yeah. I don't think, I went to college and I graduated from college barely, but I didn't really, whatever, that's a whole separate thing. But, that was on the behest of my parents. That wasn't my option. That was like, you are going to college. That's what we do in this family. I was like, okay. You're going to pay me to go live somewhere else and I get to go and do whatever? Yeah. Okay, cool. So, that's how I went. But I tell this joke all the time. I had a girl that used to work for us at my shop that 21 years old. One of our vendors comes in, drops stuff off, and he's standing there. And I was like, I was working with the customer or whatever. And I was like, hey, just write him a check so we can get out of here. I don't know how to write a check. It's like, you're 21 years old. You don't know how to write a check? Like, what did you learn in school? Where do you I don't know if I learned it in school either, but it's just like, I feel like there's so many like basic life skills that the schools could be, helping people get to.
I was taught that in home ec class.
Right. And then, I took home ec, mm-hmm. and I know how to sew a pillow.
Yeah, we did that too.
We did some cooking. I did all sorts of stuff. And it's stuff that I like, I don't know if I could specifically look back on and say that I use it all the day, but there's stuff that I definitely use from my home ec classes. I had one in middle school and high school, I think.
It was not for the middle school.
I was in Wisconsin in middle
school.
Back
5 years ago, we didn't have middle schools and high schools. We had a junior high school and a senior high school.
The same thing.
Pretty much. It's just they moved 6th grade over to the middle school and turned it into a middle school.
That's the other thing I don't get
Then 9th
either.
grade moved over to high school. And
like, why is it 6-3-4 in division?
It's a good question.
I mean, we have 16 years. 16 years we have these kids at schools. And it's 6-3-4. Like, I would think like 5-5-6 or 6-5-5 would make more sense.
You think? Well, when I was going to school, it was 6.
I just did really bad math. 6-3-4. 13 years total.
6-3 and 3.
Yeah, like I feel like maybe it should be 5-4-4. Is that right? Yeah, 5-4-4 would make more sense. I don't know. Yeah. I don't get it. Okay, that was a random tangent. That's what we do. That's how I like to do it. Okay, so top things. We went through top things for you. I'm trying to think if there's anything else specific that I had in my head that I want to talk about. District 7's up on that end of town. Yeah, I covered everything I wanted to cover. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I found something earlier today I thought was very interesting.
Hit me.
It was an 8th grade test from the early 1900s.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It was hard. I couldn't do it.
Really?
Yeah. And it was everything from
I think
English and spelling, math,
going
science.
back to our joke about basic civics, I think basic civics class, you should be able to graduate. You should be able to pass the citizenship exam. I think that makes sense.
There was questions on that test about civics, about how your government, the 3 branches of government, then even asked who your local representatives were.
Yeah.
Can you name 3 of your local elected officials?
Yeah, I mean, I've been joking about putting together a survey and just going and walking around, like, I'm here by the mall, just go walk around the mall and be like, hey, random person, answer these 5 questions for me. Who's the mayor? How many city council people do we have? I'm not in the city, but that doesn't matter. How many county commissioners do we have? Do you vote for the trustee? Well, obviously that's an easy one because trustee side, Biggs has got his signs everywhere. It'd be hard for people not to know that one. But I'm saying, like, and maybe this is a sad outlook on Knox County at large, but I would wager that most people fail that test.
I don't think it's just Knox County. I think it's all over.
Well, I mean,
most people fail that test. Yeah.
But I just think it's one of those, like, I think. Whether intentionally or just by chance over the years, I think we have put 0 effort into anybody keeping up with local. Like, I understand people understand federal. You can't.
Yeah, I think that's where we failed. Is we've been paying too much, even as citizens, we've been paying a lot more attention to federal than we ever do local, and local's where it matters.
And I think a huge part of that is the party system, and we'll talk more about that in my Super 5 question section. But I think one of the things about that is you're running as a Republican, right?
Yes.
So by definition, you're Donald Trump.
Somewhat, yeah.
But you're not. Is my point. No, and even if you're a supporter of Trump or whatever, that's not important. Is that what the National Party and their platform stances are and what they can do in the Senate and the House and the White House, that's one thing. That's not how it works here. That's not how County Commission works. That's not how our school board works. So having that R next to your name affiliates you with them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean anything really when you get down to it. That's one of the problems I have, because it really doesn't mean anything to me right here in Knox County.
Correct.
Because other than you're more likely to win because it's Knox County and the R's win in Knox County. These are just the facts. I don't make them up. That's just the way it is. And so, like, that to me is a problem that we have, and I don't know how to get people engaged enough to figure that out. To take the time to be like, Sherri Garrett is an individual who's running for school board. The R after our name is not really that important, or it's not supposed to be that important. And we need to figure out if Sherri Garrett's right for the job, not if an R is right for the job.
Correct.
Because realistically, as I understand it, the R, and I haven't had Herrera in a while. I need to get Herrera back in.
Yeah, you do.
Because I want to understand the pillars of the party and how those pillars of the party line up in the different levels that we talk about. Because, all the state people are starting to pull their petitions now, and so I get to start this whole process with all the state people running this year too. And I'm going to chase as many of them as I can down, and because I enjoy this way too much, but chasing this whole process through, I don't like. That's one of the things I'm trying to figure out about the parties too, is how does the pillars of the party stand up against the position you're speaking for or you're asking to be voted for? And if you want to field a little bit of it, you're welcome to. How does the platform of the Republican Party specifically apply to a school board race?
I have to think about that one for a minute.
And I'll give you a little bit. I'll give you a little extra grace today, because realistically, this hasn't been a conversation for while
Yeah,
because we haven't done
recently.
partisan races. We have before, but it's been years ago. So there's been this whole stretch where the partisan part wasn't part of the conversation. So it's not as fresh of, I can get behind. It's a little easier for commissioner to answer that question because it's normal.
Yeah.
But for this seat, I think that's an important question that people need to ask themselves. Not so much you as the person running, but people need to ask themselves, what does that R actually mean to this seat?
Yeah. And when I actually announced, it was nonpartisan at that point. So
Right.
I had my mind fixed on it was going to be a nonpartisan race, and it would be in the primary, it would be the top two that would move on to the
Right.
general. And then when it became partisan, I've known Daniel Herrera, got to know him pretty well over the past year, and I like the party that he is trying to transform the Knox County Republican Party into. It's conservative values.
Right. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure that out. Like I said, I need to talk to him more about it. I need to get Randy back in here. Randy's one of my favorite people I've ever met.
Oh, yeah.
Randy's a great dude.
Yeah.
But, that's one of the things to me that I think as we started that on is that we all know what federal government is. We all know who the president of the United States is. We all know who Nancy Pelosi is. Not that that matters a bit to me and you. Realistically, Nancy Pelosi being the Speaker of the House has half of a percent of your and my matters of a day-to-day life. But we know that. Do we know who the Register of Deeds is right now?
Yes, it's Nick McBride.
I'm just saying we do, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying we at large. Again, if it's on our 10 question survey and you say who's the Register of Deeds, everybody's gonna be like, I don't know. Yeah, and has he got did somebody pull a petition against him? I know nobody's running against Sherri at the clerk's office.
I think someone has. I want to say.
I think Sherri Witt, the county clerk's the only.
She is
the only one. Well, a bunch of judges too, because nobody understands that, and that's a whole separate thing. I've decided that I don't think we should vote for judges. I think they should be appointed by county commission.
Okay.
Because it doesn't make I don't know what county commission does. Like I know what a judge does.
Well, that.
You know?
Most people don't, and they don't understand the different courts. I mean, I'm only just learning, and I know a little bit about it, but
I had my lawyer buddy come in.
I've gotten to know a few of the judges.
Right, we did a whole hour
judges.
and some change with a buddy of mine that's a lawyer that helped at least kind of break it down. But he knows the ones that he works in more than other ones, and lawyers are all specified, and so it's not like he knows the whole thing. But there's a lot of stuff going on there. But again, I think one of the things to me that I don't think people pay attention to is like Sherri Witt at the clerk's office. That is a very well-defined job.
Yes.
What does it matter who sits in that seat? It doesn't matter. There's a very specific list of this is what you do, this is how it gets done. You can do a little procedure stuff. You can hire and fire people. But at the end of the day, somebody comes in, they got the right paperwork, and they got their money. You give them their license plate.
Yes.
Why are we electing that person? It doesn't make sense. What difference does it make to me if it's you or if it's her? It doesn't. I have a problem with that. And I don't think people know that. They just vote because I'm supposed to vote. I did my duty. It's like you don't even know who you voted for. I push the buttons. Drives me crazy. I'm more than willing. See, I'm not running for an office, so I can be mad at voters. I can hate on voters because you need to get smarter, people. Drives me crazy. All right, so 5 questions.
Okay.
Man, I lost my sheet, so I got to do it by memory. Oh, there it is. Okay, 5 questions on my messy desk. We've already talked about it, and we've already talked about most of this stuff, but this is my condensed version. So question 1, is this your first time running for office? If not, what have you run for before? Question 1B is this the last seat that you ever want to chase down?
This is the first time running for political office. Never run before.
Okay.
And at this point, like you said, you can't see what's in the future, but at this point, I can't see myself running for anything else.
Okay, number 2 is what's your favorite ice cream?
Strawberry.
These are the important questions. Is what
Strawberry with little chunks of strawberry in it.
And then 3 is where's your favorite place to eat around here?
I've got several. I love Aubrey's down on Emory Road.
Okay.
The Burger is another one of my favorite places to go.
Oh, the Burger. Yeah.
The Burger.
Grujo's was fun, but they moved into that shopping center. They didn't come back the same.
No, they didn't.
When Grujo's was there on the corner, they were great.
It was sad when they...
Somebody got sick and went back to Germany for a little while. So it happens.
It does.
Okay, so number 4, we get back into actual politics questions. And we talked about this a little bit, but it's more specific. Number 4 is, do you feel like the partisan election is a added value to me, the voter?
I believe it is. I think it lets the voters know where your values are at. Republican versus Democrat, conservative versus, more liberal. But I think most voters want to know where your values are at. And from the people that I have talked to, they feel an independent might be hiding their true values. I mean,
that's the assumption that there's only two ways to do values.
And a lot of people have that assumption. It may not necessarily be true, but a lot of people do have that assumption.
And this one's a hot one for me, because if you want to get down to it, there's plenty of other parties out there that can give you that general sphere of values to a person, but the ability to get them on the ballot is near impossible. I think so I'm out in District 4, right? If I want to run for county commission against, Kyle's got 2 more years, but if I want to run against Kyle Ward in 24 for county commission, and I want to run as libertarian because that makes that is more accurate to me and who I am and how I feel like government and politics should work, I would have to get more signatures on my petition than there are people that can vote in District 4.
I think there's some legislation.
There's been like 3 years in a row that they've tried to push some stuff through, and it's never
I think
quite
it needs
gotten.
To be pushed through, because
it's never quite gotten there.
Yeah,
right.
That's something I completely disagree with.
Because then I would have to run.
Everybody should have the same chance.
Right, I would have to run as an independent because my party won't be on the ballot, and then I'm hiding things. I'm just saying that's a hot one for me.
I know. I totally get that, because I honestly, for years, I considered myself an independent. I just told myself I want to vote for the best person for the job. Found myself voting more Republican.
Right. And I mean, that's kind of my history. But I mean, that's kind of my history personally as well. I as far as the priority of things to me on what I care about more, like I think the way our government takes and spends money is more important than me than how much we help X, Y, and Z. So like that's always been my value first in it. But again, that's old whatever. All right, number 5 is so you're, like you said, you're running as a Republican. So tell me about a Democrat that you like, that you think does good work, that you either look forward to working to if it's somebody local, but it could be a state or federal person as well. Just give me your favorite Democrat and something about that favorite Democrat.
Well, there's a couple of them. I like Vetty Satterfield. I think she doesn't hide who she is. She has her firm values.
Yeah, I'm bummed she's not running to keep that seat. Anyway.
Yeah, I know, that's kind of sad. I was kind of disappointed when she said she wasn't going to run. And Courtney Durrett is another one, local county commissioner.
Yeah, your neighbor, not your district, but your neighbor's district.
Yeah, my neighbor's district. So yeah, she's been great on the county commission and seems to be a very, very nice person.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed. I had her and whoever she ran against for that seat back in 20. But if I'm 100% honest, of all the interviews that I've done, especially of people running against each other and partisan stuff like that, if I didn't know going into either one of those interviews, because I can't remember who she ran against now, but if I didn't know which initial was after their name going into the interviews, I don't think I would have picked it up talking to them. I think as far as left or right, they are the closest to the middle of the left or right that I've ever talked to, at least, that have the moniker of left or right, or L or R, whatever, or D or R, whatever. All right. So that's 5 questions. Thank you very much. That's the main part I want to get out. So take a minute, plug your website or your Facebook page or whatever you want to plug to help people find you and learn more about you, and then we'll do an outro and call it a day.
Okay, sounds good. I'm Sherri Garrett, running for school board in District 7, Halls, Powell, and High School. Website is sherrigarrettforschoolboard.com. That is spelled out FOR.
Okay, good. That's it. Those are details.
There's a few of them that spell it with the number 4. So
2 R's
there are
in
2 R's in Garrett, 2 R's in Sherri with an I, and 2 R's in Garrett.
I screwed that up earlier. I'll put links to both in the show notes, the Facebook and your website, to help people that don't spell well like me. But the 4 is very important because I think most people. So it's 2 R's and 2 T's.
2 R's and 2 T's in Garrett. Yeah.
So you should be able to get pretty close off that. All right. Well, I really appreciate it. This was super fun. I'm so confused, not because of you, just because of the whole thing. Like every time I come to the talent show, it's like, what I forget, and that's where I'll forget something. I'll call you tomorrow and be like, hey, I forgot to ask you this. Doesn't matter. I'm not editing the show. It's not how I do things. So outro, and we'll call it a day. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right, Sherri Garrett, everybody. Like you said, District 7 School Board, Knox County. I don't know, still got a couple months before everything gets real hot and heavy, but we're going to keep working through. We're going to keep learning more. Go to our website, almostinagreement@gmail.com, or I'm sorry, that's our email, almostinagreement.com, and go to my 22 election guide. I'll be adding in some of the specific dates of, because absentee requests and early voting and all that kind of stuff, as well as the actual primary dates and then the general date later in August. And then as you go down the list, you can find your district and who's running for what seats. And then you can click on them and get their website. You can click on the show link, and then I'll get you the link to the show that they've done with me. Go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, follow us there, give us a like and share, and then go to your favorite podcast provider and subscribe there. That's probably the easiest way to keep up with us and all the shows that we're doing constantly. What is this show, 15 in 12 days or something like that? So they're going to keep coming. I'm going to keep talking to as many people as I can, and we're going to get as much information about as many of these people running for seats as we can figure it out.